O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios. Here's Bill Schmid.
We are live. It is Sports Map all night. Thanks for hanging out. Welcome into the program. My guy Andrew Carlson riding shotgun. I am Bill Schmid. Thanks for being here tonight on a Monday as we wrap up week number 6 in the National Football League with yet again another doubleheader on Monday night, which I'm absolutely in love with. There's not many things that I love. Let me start racking them up. Yeah, no, going to the window with a winning ticket is one of them. Family, right? Friends. And then Monday night doubleheaders. I think they need to just be a thing every single week. However, we start Kansas City, Buffalo at 5 Eastern. If we could get that as the 7 Eastern, 6 o'clock Central Time. Now, this is, we're in the media here, so you can't spell media without me. So I'm worried about myself instead of everybody else listening across the country. So that's why I'm going to go with let me get some of this right away. Let me have as much Monday Night Football as I can have right out of the gates and start it up with a 6 and a 9 o'clock game. And we had some good ones in the beginning half. Tonight, not so much, as the Dallas Cowboys are starting to see what life without Dak Prescott is going to look like. And, it is not a pretty picture. Not a fun time for Jerry Jones and the rest of his Dallas Cowboy brass, because Andy Dalton has already thrown 3 picks through 2.5 quarters, and Arizona going in right now for another score, already leading at 21-3. We got thoughts on every single game that we watched yesterday. There's a decision that's going to have to be made with, our guy Baker Mayfield. We'll get into that a little bit more as we continue on here into the program. And the World Series is now set. As reluctantly as ever, I admit that I was wrong. I thought the Braves were going to pull this thing out in Game 6. Then I thought they were doing it in Game 7. And they ran themselves right out of the World Series. We'll get into that as well. Pat Donovan stops by in about 30 minutes from right now. Host of the Pat and Aaron Show on 95.3 in Tampa. Talk Rays and Bucks, who just dismantled my Green Bay Packers. And Dan Zimborski previews the World Series coming up in an hour and a half. Keep it right here. We're off and running on a Monday night. Where else would you rather be? With Andrew Carlson and Bill Schmid inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios on Sports Map Radio. Sports Map all night. but right here on Sports Map Radio with your guy, Bill Schmid, alongside Andrew Carlson here on Sports Map all night. 3 hours of Week 6 conversation coming at you. We are going to take a timeout in the middle here. We got to give our World Series predictions. And Andrew, the show pot took another beating this week. Now, not as bad as week number 5, but there was no Rafael Nadal to save us as there was in week 5. Let's just say it that way. So we need to figure out exactly when this World Series is going to get wrapped up so we can get a series price on it and get the show pot a little bit back closer to the green. How does that sound?
Hey, look, anything that sounds like winning money, I'm with that.
That's what we like to hear. Hey, love it when you come to me. My cash machine is my favorite kind of machine each and every time. And no ATMs here. I mean, Andrew Carlson makes a nice little living here, but he's not giving anything out. So to everybody sitting here on YouTube in the comments and watching us on Twitter and Facebook as well, he doesn't have any money for you. So we apologize. However, hopefully we can get a little bit of dollars and you can invest as well. And we'll get into the 3 plays that pay. Like we said, just trying to go 1-0, every week. However, as Coach Boone said in Remember the Titans, we strive for perfection, knowing absolutely well we'll never reach there. But hey, maybe we'll learn how to gamble on this game like men. And that's the bottom line, as we can get closer and closer to getting winning bets and minimal sweats. And we had a lot of sweats this weekend in the NFL. Let's dive into it. There was a lot to get into after week number 6, and we're still seeing one game wrap up right now, but it's 28-3. And the way the Dallas Cowboys are playing without Dak Prescott, I think you can just about tie a bow on this. The Cowboys look absolutely lost without Dak under center. Andy Dalton looks worse than he ever did in Cincinnati. He's thrown 3 picks already here. And despite the continuity that they had on some of those teams, they had good weapons when Andy was in Cincinnati. It's not like those were teams that were devoid of talent. I think this is probably the most talented team that he's played with. However, their offensive line is really bad right now. And I know that's weird for everybody to comprehend at this moment because it's been driven into our brains for the last decade or so about how good the Cowboys' offensive line is. Well, that offensive line is gone. They just showed a graphic earlier on in the game with all the guys' faces and how many guys were rookies and how many starts they had all made. There's no Tyron Smith. He's done for the year. He had surgery. Lyle Collins has started for the last 3 years. He's down. He had to have season-ending surgery. Travis Frederick retired. So now you have Tyler Biadasz, who I think is a really nice player from Wisconsin as the center. However, there's nobody around them besides Zach Martin, who's an all-pro, that was a part of that dominating, running offense we became so accustomed to seeing in Dallas. And then here tonight, you see Zach Martin go out. It's an absolute train wreck for the Cowboys, and they're getting embarrassed on their home field on Monday Night Football by Kyler Murray, who's an absolute sensation and is about to go to 7-0 in this building since it was built. He's got a rushing touchdown. He's got 2 through the air to Christian Kirk. It has been an absolute beatdown of the Dallas Cowboys so far, and it's only midway through the third quarter. We'll keep you posted on that, maybe hear from Kyler after the game tonight. But also in the first leg of the doubleheader today, the biggest game, I think, playoff implication-wise, that you could have seen in week number 6, the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. 2 teams, Andrew, that we hadn't seen come off of losses this year. They both suffer their first in week number 5. They come in 4-1. The rain, the conditions, I would have initially thought that favored the Bills because I think they're a better defensive team than Kansas City even could dream of being. Now, Kansas City's Steve Spagnuolo, I think, is a really nice defensive coordinator. They got some good players on that side of the ball. Don't get me wrong with the Honey Badger, Chris Jones up the middle. Frank Clark is worth a lot of money, but you look at how those 2 teams are built. The team that's built to win on defense is Buffalo. You would anticipate Buffalo would be the one that could fight through that adversity tonight. However, it was the better quarterback that showcased themselves, and 2 touchdowns from Mahomes to Kelsey was the difference, and they almost scored going into half as well. But it was pre the idea going into this game for me was, how does Josh Allen come back after his first loss, as well as can you go stride for stride with the best? How do you elevate your game going up against the number one guy in the league right now at that position? And the 1A, 1B, you can call him and Russell Wilson, but Mahomes is the reigning champion. He's got the MVP award, so I'm going to roll with Mahomes as number one at this moment. And while Pat didn't have his best stuff, then you got to be able to take advantage. And to be completely honest with you, Josh Allen made some nice throws, but he was nowhere near the kind of player Pat Mahomes was tonight. The improvisation that we saw from Mahomes under duress is something that Josh Allen just couldn't comprehend with and couldn't hang with. So now you get back-to-back losses from Buffalo at 4-2. And throughout the week, we'll get into this. There's another team in that AFC East that I think is slowly but surely becoming a playoff contender. And they're right now in second place. No, it's not that team in Foxborough, because Cam Newton and the boys did not bounce off of the impromptu vacation they had over the bye week against the Denver Broncos. But I'm not worried in the least bit about Cam and the Patriots. They lose to Denver 18-12 yesterday on their home field. And while the result is surprising, right, and shocking a little bit, Andrew, I see a team that they were in the red zone, had a chance to win that game, coming off of 2 days of practice in 2 weeks. And that's an excuse. I understand that no one's going to make excuses in this league. But that's exactly what it was. Then I point back to Sunday Night Football against one of the 3 unbeaten teams in the league, and right now the best team in the NFC after whatever happened to Green Bay down in Tampa. And we'll get into that a little bit later on in the program, probably the third hour. But you start to stack it up, and while the 2-3 mark in the first time New England's been under 500 since 2002 coming off a Super Bowl, I'm not as worried or concerned where New England is, because I know where they can go. And I'm seeing slowly some signs of life in that offense. That is exactly how they want to construct their team. I think they're a work in progress, but if I count on the head coach and the play caller and the style and the system they have, they always get better at the end of the year. And they're not as bad as their record shows right now at 2-3. They've had some incredibly winnable games. They've been tested. And they took Kansas City to the ropes on the road on a weird week without their starting quarterback, without Cam. Now, Cam did not look good yesterday. 2 picks, and some people are saying the honeymoon's over. I'm pumping the brakes on the fear of Cam Newton not being able to get to the playoffs in the AFC East. Although Miami is going to be no pushover as they've been in years past. And we'll get into that a little bit more into the week. Yesterday as well, Derrick Henry, goodness gracious, man. Over 250 all-purpose yards, a 94-yarder. And the Titans continue to show, man, they're absolutely for real. There is no doubt, and shouldn't be in anybody's mind, that Tennessee Titans team is here to stay. Derrick Henry was an absolute beast, as we've seen him so many different times in his young career, where once the calendar turns to about November, he's the best player in football. Once people no longer want to tackle a guy of that size, once the weather starts getting a little bit sloppy, a little bit messy, a little cold, and those angles they're not as pure from a defensive side, man, he makes you pay. And if you think a guy with 250 pounds coming at you doesn't have breakaway speed, he showed it again yesterday. I love the guts by Romeo Crennel. We'll hear his explanation of going for 2 to try to put that game out of reach. And I got to get Andrew Carlson's spin on it as the resident Houston Texans fan in the building, because I thought it was a genius winning maneuver that your team right now is 1-4. So call a spade a spade. You got to make as many winning moves as you can if you want to try to find yourself into January. And another winning move was Ron Rivera's. We'll hear him as well within about the next 30, 35 minutes. They go on the road against New York in a game that no one anticipated watching. Ended up being a pretty good game. The Giants against the football team. And congratulations to Joe Judge as his group. And Joe Judge gets his first win as a head coach in the National Football League. Joe Burrow and the boys blow a 21-point lead in Indy. However, I'm still not sold on Phillip Rivers in that group. He throws for 3 touchdowns yesterday, but I'm still not getting down with Phillip Rivers being a factor into January and into the playoffs as well. I want to get into, though, next, 2 of the most disappointing groups on the weekend. One at home is an inexcusable loss. And the way and how you lose. It's not always about the end result. It's about the how. And the how for the Minnesota Vikings was absolutely embarrassing. And the Cleveland Browns had a chance to make a statement for the first time in the better part of the last decade and a half. And instead of making a statement of them arriving to the show, well, Baker Mayfield got himself put on the pine. And we'll hear Kevin Stefanski's explanation as well coming up next. 1-800-224-2004. If we didn't get to your game, we're continuing on all night. And tell us why we should be concerned about your favorite team getting themselves into the playoffs and why they can be an absolute problem once they get there. Didn't even get into the 49ers, who now even themselves up at 3-3 over the LA Rams. Rams looked lost offensively and made some bad mistakes late in that game. There's a ton to unpack throughout the whole weekend. We're going to do it right here. We're going to talk in about 15 minutes from right now. Pat Donovan's going to be here from Tampa, 95.3 WDAE, host of the Pat and Aaron Show in Tampa. He's going to talk Rays and Buccaneers with us as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady absolutely embarrassed the Green Bay Packers. We'll hear from both of those, and Aaron Rodgers explains why his team got absolutely smoked yesterday in Tampa. 1-800-224-2004. Hop aboard and call in with us, Andrew Carlson and Bill Schmid, hanging out with you at Sports Map all night.
Presented by
I don't know who
Rocket
cut this
Mortgage.
thing off that
Live
audio
from
sheet,
the
but
O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Bill Schmid.
Out of the gun on third down. He's intercepted. There's an open field straight ahead for the run back and the touchdown. And it's Minka Fitzpatrick.
Highlight courtesy of CBS. That was Jim Nance. Hello, friends. Bill Schmid and Andrew Carlson inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios. Thanks for hanging out with us. Need replacement parts and tools for your repair, maintenance, or restoration project? O'Reilly Auto Parts has you covered. Trust the friendly and knowledgeable parts professionals at O'Reilly Auto Parts. They know what it takes to get the job done right the first time. In fact, professional technicians have counted on O'Reilly Auto Parts for years. Stop by and talk to one of the professional parts people today. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every single day. 1-800-224-2004. Phone lines are open for you talking NFL. Week number 6 as it concludes right now. It's 28-3. And it's an absolute beating of the Dallas Cowboys and a dismantling of whatever Jerry Jones thought his team was going to look like without Dak Prescott. If I'm Dak Prescott's agent, I'm on the phone right now with the Cowboys saying, is this what you want? You like what you see here, Jerry? Where do those assets get moved around to now? Which ones are the more important ones to utilize? Yeah, because, man, Andy Dalton has missed some wide open throws. He's thrown 3 picks. It has been ugly. Zeke fumbled twice and didn't help Dallas at all as they tried to pound the ball, and it just got coughed up. And if I know anything about Mike McCarthy, fumbling is the number one way to get yourself right on off the field. Watch that too many times. That call you just heard was Jim Nance saying Minka Fitzpatrick taking Baker Mayfield back for 6, something that was all too common of an occurrence yesterday. Baker was abysmal. And despite the rib injury, despite everything that we've seen out of the Browns so far this year, it was an absolute disaster in a game that they had, a real opportunity to make a statement to the rest of the country and announce that they're here. Whether or not players in the locker room want to admit it in the media. And I'm usually down with downplaying the importance of a game for an organization, right? Because you can't change the 39 years of bad history that people have watched there. You can't change how much bad football has been played in a Cleveland Browns uniform. All you can do is try to win and get into the playoffs this season. You can, as some coach speak would say, Andrew, got to control the controllable, right? Focus on going 1-0. And whether or not, Baker playing in the game with his injuries was smart, whether or not it was the best thing for the organization, for the team, I don't know what the situation fully was. Kevin Stefanski tried to explain it after the game and explain the pulling of Mayfield there in the third quarter. I thought it was the best way for Kevin Stefanski to, one, take the onus on himself, which for an NFL coach and a head coach still learning how to be a head coach, this is only the 6th game that Kevin Stefanski has been a head coach for. It's an ownership business when you're the head coach of a football team. What I mean by that is you need to own every mistake on yourself. You need to own every single loss and every move, every personnel decision you make on yourself, and then take the blame. Right? Then you got to roll with the punches. Then you got to step back and say, it's on me. Baker got sacked 4 times for 20 yards. He got pounded yesterday, left and right. Throws 2 picks. The completion percentage was just over 50%. Throws 1 touchdown at the end of the half, and you start to think that it could get turned around. But Kevin Stefanski explained why Baker Mayfield did not finish the game yesterday in Pittsburgh.
Injury-wise, really got out of it okay. Big.
Got to call on hold. David from Chicago wants to talk Bears.
Sweet.
One more time, and that's I put that on myself. Went into this game knowing we had to keep them clean, and we didn't do a good enough job. So that starts with me, obviously. And he's a very, very tough player, and I know he wants to fight, but it's a long season. We got a game next week, and I didn't feel like it was the right thing to put him back out there.
And that's just a winning move. And Kevin Stefanski continues to surprise me in the way that he has taken over that Browns organization and really just been the adult in the room that they needed. And you look at what's different about this year's Browns team than it was last year. It's Freddie Kitchens. There's really nothing else different. You see a dedication to making the right play, and you see just some intelligent football being played. Now, whether or not they win yesterday, they get blown out 38-7, and that game got away from them early. The pick six is one of those plays, like a kickoff return for me. Those are almost game changers. Those are game enders, because the momentum to come back after a play like that is about as difficult as it can ever be in football. And you saw Green Bay just not even be able to do anything after the pick six against Rodgers. And we'll hear that from Rodgers' point of view a little bit later on in the program. 1-800-224-2004. David is in Chicago. He's up on Sports Map all night. What's going on, David? What's on your mind, man?
Big Bill, how are we doing tonight, buddy?
Fantastic, brother. How you doing?
I cannot complain. You don't want to know why? Yesterday, my Chicago Bears ended a 3-game win streak against the Carolina Panthers, okay? I want to tell you right now, you heard it in Nick Foles' press conference yesterday. Would you rather lose looking pretty or frickin' win looking ugly? We're talking, it's a Chicago thing. You win ugly and you still get the dub.
No, absolutely.
5-1.
Go ahead. Sorry. I was getting dripped off with the Italian beef accent you got going on there, David, in the Windy City. What's going on? Come on, continue.
It's Chicago. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I know all you're talking about with the Bears. And let me get this out here first too, by the way. It was the best decision they could have made was to go to Nick Foles, because it was a winning move by Matt Nagy, who's about winning games this year for the Bears, which I think Ryan Pace is clearly trying to save himself his job. Winning move by Matt Nagy. That offense isn't exactly where it needs to be, but their defense is really good.
Hey, I will agree that the offense needs some work, and we'll get there. You know what I mean? If you're perfect and you're playing close games and winning close games, and you're what you consider perfect, you're not where you need to be. I would rather have an offense that needs room to grow and improve rather than be perfect. Now, I will tell you this.
Tell me.
The defense, they got big names like Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks that
Mhm.
are playing out of this world. But you need to go and watch number 23, Kyle Fuller. He is one of the most underappreciated quarterbacks in the entire National Football League, and he is playing out of his mind this year.
I agree.
I think he's going to be an all-pro. He's been the recipient of some terrible calls. He's, you know what I mean, with the tackling and everything, trying to protect not only the receiver but himself. He's delivered some freaking kill shots.
I agree, and sorry, David, I gotta let you go. I'm getting up close to this break here, but I agree with you on what Kyle Fuller's your assessment of Kyle Fuller is. He's a guy that is completely on the rise. And Jalen Johnson, the other corner that they drafted, I want to say the second round out of Utah. I like him as well. He's a guy that tries to go make a play on the football. The one thing that's always hurt Kyle Fuller in his career is people didn't think that he got the interception numbers. The dude was picking off the ball last year. And he came in here and grabbed himself, I think, 5 picks last year. He made a name for himself in 2019. He's continuing in 2020. Let's talk Tampa Bay Bucks and Rays. Man, title town in Tampa. Pat Donovan's on Sports Map all night next. night. Andrew Carlson alongside us. And now joining us on the Progressive Guest Hotline. Progressive makes it easy. Bundle your home and car insurance. Get your quote online at progressive.com today. Here's Pat Donovan, host of Pat and Aaron Show on 95.3 WDAE in Tampa, Florida. Pat, thanks for the time tonight, man. And it is one heck of a time to be watching sports in the state of Florida, especially in Tampa, huh?
It's nice, and it hasn't always been this way, as I know you know. And for Tampa Bay fans who have been through a lot of losing, the Buccaneers have the worst winning percentage in the history, not of football, but of pro sports. So Bucs fans, Rays fans, Lightning fans, this isn't exactly something they have a long history of. So they're certainly enjoying it right now as it happens for the first time, really ever, this kind of atmosphere here in the city.
Pat, we'll get into the Rays in just a couple of moments, but I broadcast up here from the state of Wisconsin, so I got to start up with you as to what we just watched at about 4:25 your time down there in Tampa yesterday. That defense is absolutely for real, and I give all the credit to Todd Bowles and the adjustments they made, allowing Devin White to free reign blitz against Rodgers. That speed they have on defense is going to be a problem for everybody in this league.
It is. And, a lot of us were concerned about the loss of Vita Vea, one of the best nose tackles in the game. And then after the game, they did a good job going and getting Steve McClendon from the New York Jets, who is another of the very good nose tackles in this game, to kind of take his place for the rest of the season, because Vita Vea is headed to the IR for the rest of the year. But man, they really didn't miss a beat. They got down 10-0, as you know, and I'm sure a lot of Bucs fans were a little bit nervous about how the day was going to go. I wasn't feeling super confident. I picked, like a lot of people, to be honest, the Packers to win that game, but the Bucs, once they got down 10-0, Jamel Dean with the pick six to turn things around, and from there it was 38 straight. And I think a lot of Bucs fans, a lot of NFL fans were shocked, not just that they won that game, but the way that they won that game, getting 2 interceptions off of Aaron Rodgers and a Packers team that hadn't turned the ball over all season, and to get that kind of deep defensive performance without a guy that was one of your best defensive players in Vita Vea was really an exciting thing for Bucs fans.
They were all over him in the backfield and putting pressure on Rodgers left and right. He gets sacked 4 times, probably could have gotten sacked 3 or 4 more times in the game. But offensively, if I was going to tell you going into the game, Mike Evans was going to have 1 catch for 10 yards, and Chris Godwin and Gronk were going to match each other with 5 catches, that doesn't seem like necessarily a recipe for success. But when you're able to pound the ball with Ronald Jones like they were, is that more of the recipe you think to win a lot of games for Tampa? Is going to do it on defense and ball control and allow Brady to, pick his spots to be great?
I think certainly that's going to be the way, if you can continue to get the kind of running game, the kind of energetic, powerful, angry runs, as they call them on Good Morning Football, right?
Yes.
On NFL Network, out of Ronald Jones, who got that scepter a couple of weeks ago for an angry run. If you're going to continue to get that, no question about it, that as this offense evolves, and listen, Mike Evans has been banged up. Chris Godwin gets back, but he has been banged up. This offense still has yet to be at 100%, which should scare the rest of the league, because they're doing okay without everybody at 100%. But you know what? You talk about Mike Evans, as good as he is, getting that 1 reception in the game. Somebody's going to be that guy game in and game out where you go, wait a second, that guy's too good to have only put up those numbers. But when you have as many offensive weapons as this team does, even with the loss of O.J. Howard a couple of weeks ago, somebody's going to kind of be that guy. Even when the offense is working, somebody's going to be that guy that doesn't put up the kind of numbers you expect, because there's just so many weapons on this offense.
And they have a staff that's going to allow the playmakers to be themselves and to make their mark. When you see Brady and Arians in the media, I thought it was a whole lot of nothing. I don't know where you guys and your listeners came down on it on 95.3 in Tampa, but it feels like that's a working relationship that's only going to get better. And for an organization that for a long time has been, plagued with injuries, been plagued with bad play, but also what happened in that Chicago game, played with a lot of penalties and undisciplined play. that's going to be a work in progress that they're only going to get better at, you would assume, throughout the season.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And to be one of the most penalized teams in football the last handful of years, to go to where they were on Sunday, not committing. Well, maybe I shouldn't say not committing a penalty all day, but certainly not being flagged for penalty all day.
Right.
Except for a rushing the passer on Ndamukong Suh, which was wiped out because of offsetting penalties. Outside of that, no actual penalty yardage against the Buccaneers all day on Sunday. And as Bruce Arians said after the game, if you don't turn the ball over, if you create a couple turnovers and you don't commit a penalty all day, that's the way to beat anybody in this effing league, as he put it. And there's no question about it. With the weapons they have on offense, with the weapons they have on defense, if you don't commit a penalty, you create turnovers, and you don't turn the ball over, you're going to come out on top more days than not. So it was really impressive to see this football team put those penalties behind them, at least for a week, and perform as disciplined as they did on Sunday. And if they're that disciplined, they really are going to be difficult to beat.
And their schedule is going to get tough. I know they got the Rams and the Chiefs coming up. They obviously still got another matchup with New Orleans, who everybody anticipated was going to take this division, for years and years to come. Then the addition of Brady. For your listeners and everybody that you talk to on a daily basis, Pat, what is the expectation for this group? Because it's easy to say, well, it's Super Bowl or bust. But, realistically, in year one of this, 2-year marriage for the Bucs, they got to compete, but they were looking at a difficult division that right now looks like it's theirs for the taking easily.
It does. And a lot of people, myself included, kind of thought coming into the season that the division was the Saints to lose. As much as the Bucs upgraded over the offseason, I thought the addition of Emmanuel Sanders to that receiving core in New Orleans would make them very difficult to stop. Obviously, they've dealt with the injury to Michael Thomas and some other things over there. Drew Brees just doesn't look like Drew Brees so far this season. So
No.
The Bucs do have that division in sight. And it's funny, you referenced the relationship between, before the last question, between Tom Brady and Bruce Arians. And it's so funny to me because that has been a topic across the league this season. People have questioned, how is that thing going to work out? But you know this. Bruce Arians is a guy that has won head coach of the year in large part because of the relationship he's had with his guys in Arizona, in large part because of the relationship he had with those guys in Indianapolis when he had to take over. So this is a guy that forever, even though he's maybe abrasive and he uses some colorful language and different things that people aren't always used to seeing from the head coaching position, has always had a fantastic relationship with his players. And then you look at Tom Brady, and he's dealt with Bill Belichick, and he's dealt with, we're going to go out there and we're going to do what we're going to do for the next couple of games. We're going to make sure that we win those football games. And he's been through that so I think he's probably enjoying the difference in Bruce Arians. Not that he had a problem with Bill Belichick. I think a lot of that stuff maybe was overblown, but I do think he's enjoying some of the colorful language, some of the different things that he gets from Bruce Arians, and some of the different things he gets from being a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. So while a lot has been made of that relationship, I think it's going a lot more smoothly than maybe some people think it is.
Couldn't agree more. Pat Donovan joining us here. Pat Donovan Radio is how you follow him on Twitter. He's the host of the Pat and Aaron Show on 95.3 WDAE in Tampa, Florida. Let's flip it over onto the other side, Pat, to the baseball side. 4 games away from the first championship in the team's history. Now, I'll put this out front, and I'm not afraid to say it. I absolutely despise the Los Angeles Dodgers. And then you throw it with another small market team, and a team that a lot of people don't like the new way of bullpenning and trying to use metrics and matchups to win. I absolutely love the way that the Rays have constructed their organization, and I think fans across baseball should be looking at this as, the new model for success for small market teams instead of an outlier. What about you?
It's funny because I'm kind of an old school guy, and I'm kind of a guy that doesn't necessarily love to rely on analytics and doesn't necessarily at its core love a lot of the things that the Tampa Bay Rays do. But it's hard to not, especially being in this market, have so much respect for it because, listen, this is a team, and I think when the opener began, I'm like, what opener? What is this? This is gimmicky. This is stupid. Nobody else would ever do. And then all of a sudden, teams like the Yankees that you'd never expect to pick up on some of that stuff, they're doing it. The shift. There's just so many different things, and the analytics as a whole. There's so many different things that the Rays organization has done that not only have they found a way, despite having one of the lower payrolls in baseball since I've been here in Tampa Bay, to be competitive and to compete and to put up banners, they've changed the game of baseball multiple times with the lowest payroll in baseball, with
Yep.
a different view of how you do things. And it really, even though it may not necessarily be my way, as kind of an old school eyeball kind of guy, you can't argue with the success. And when they get as much criticism as they do, when people want to talk about how many people are in the stands, when people want to do, there's a lot of things that people want to bring up when it comes to the Tampa Bay Rays that don't really have anything to do with baseball. But when you look at baseball, they've changed the game. And that from a team with the payroll that they have, from a team that's constantly, every time they do something well, somebody's stealing from them. Just look across the field, right?
Yep.
Who's the GM of the Los Angeles Dodgers? Andrew Friedman. Teams have stolen from this team. Teams will pay for their guys when maybe they can't do it, and they keep finding a way. They've changed the game of baseball, and it's so freaking impressive. It really is. And I really hope they find a way to bring this home and give their fan base, because the fan base is bigger than people realize, because they see those empty seats
Yeah.
in the stands. They don't look into radio ratings. They don't look into television ratings. They don't realize that as many eyeballs and ears are on this team as a lot of teams in baseball. They just see those empty seats, and they don't realize how diehard of a fan base this Rays team really has.
I was just going to ask you because you see, I see them pack the Lightning games left and right. I see that a lot. What is the fan base like down there, and what are the misconceptions that you guys fight each and every day doing your show?
I think people don't realize that the ballpark's in a terrible spot. You know this. When you build
Yep.
a ballpark, one of the first things you do is you look at how many people live in X amount of miles away from that stadium in every direction. You know who lives around the Trop in every direction? Fish. Fish live around the Trop in every direction. And listen, it's a pain in the ass to get to a lot of ballparks. So I hate that excuse, right? I don't want to drive over the bridge. I get it. I hate it. But the reality is, the Lightning just across the bay in Tampa, actually in the city of Tampa, they've sold that building out night in and night out for a long time. But the reality is, those of us in the market understand, as much as we love our Tampa Bay Lightning, and if anybody ever saw the way that they lined the river walk for that boat parade after the Stanley Cup came home, they understand how much we love our Tampa Bay Lightning in this city. The reality is, when it comes to TV ratings, when it comes to radio ratings, the Rays blow them out of the water.
Wow.
You see the people in the building, and people think it's a much bigger hockey town than baseball town, but the reality is, as much as we love our Tampa Bay Lightning, the Rays have much more people paying attention. If I bring up the Rays on the radio outside of a Stanley Cup final run, right, I'm getting a lot more reaction than I am for a Tampa Bay Lightning conversation. We love our Lightning, but we also love our Rays, and it just doesn't come across on TV, and people don't realize how passionate this fan base really is for that team.
Pat, thanks, dude. This was a lot of fun. Hopefully we can talk as this thing keeps moving forward. And like you said, I'm hoping on a wish and a prayer that they knock out this Dodger team, because like I said in the beginning, and I'm not afraid to say it, despise that organization. Thanks, dude. That was a lot of fun.
Hey, man, anytime you need me, I'm always available.
Appreciate it, dude. That's Pat Donovan. Once again, guys, go follow him on Twitter. I just did, and you're going to want to too. Pat Donovan Radio. He's the host of the Pat and Aaron Show on 95.3 WDAE in Tampa, Florida. He joined us on the Progressive Guest Hotline. Quote, buy and save on home insurance with Progressive's new home quote, Explore, only at Progressive.com. And Progressive is proud to honor our veterans by donating cars to move their lives forward, especially in times of need like we're all in. Learn more about their Keys to Progress program and plans for 2020 at keys2progress.com. Here, Ron Rivera and a winning attitude in the National Football League next. Don't go anywhere. It's Sports Map All Night. Apart Studios and Sports Map all night. Thanks for hanging out. Bill Schmid alongside Andrew Carlson. Sour of Sports Map all night. It's brought to you by Rocket Mortgage. When you need certainty in the home buying process with a loan that fits you, Rocket Mortgage can provide that for you. Rocket Mortgage. There's so much to get into across the National Football League that it's hard to do so in just a 3-hour span. That's why I'm lucky that we get this show for 3 hours a night, Monday through Friday. And then we get games like this that unfold in front of us. And now I get to look at Stephen Jones and Jerry Jones looking as disappointed and angry as ever. Cowboys getting drummed 31-3 at home. Wow, life with Dak Prescott's not too pretty, huh? Is it, Jerry? Come back and hear from a winning head coach in the National Football League. No, they didn't win the game, but this is a winning philosophy that will win you games. Keep it right here, Sports Map Radio.
Schmid.
Hour number 2 of Sports Map All Night begins right now. What's going on? Bill Schmid alongside Andrew Carlson inside our Houston Mothership Studios. I'm up here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, just icing my wounds, man. Andrew, that game last night was absolutely brutal. I almost thought about not watching it into the final, quarter as Aaron Rodgers remained into the game for my Green Bay Packers, just getting absolutely ransacked by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But I stuck through. I hung with it, brick by brick. We had to continue to see the improvement. But then I realized that it could be a lot worse. I'm splitting hairs on a team that is 4-1 now, still well within the playoff race, still I think going to be competing for home field advantage. And then I thought, hey, you could be a fan of, like my friend Jake Asman, I could be a fan of the New York Jets. That would be tough, right? Like I imagine you do the same thing being a fan of the Houston Texans. While it's bleak now, you continue to pump the good things, or you could be a fan of like the Washington football team. But here we go, Washington fans. Listen to your head coach, and I'm going to tell you why you should have some hope. This is Ron Rivera after a 20-19 loss in the Meadowlands yesterday to the New York Giants.
I told him in the locker room, I said, guys, I play to win, and I told you guys that's part of my philosophy. The only way to learn to win is play to win, and that's what I want those guys to understand. That's the mentality. I mean, some of those fourth downs, I win for it because I believe that's again, the mentality has to be we have to do certain things to win football games, and if taking a little bit of a gamble is part of it, then that's what I'm doing.
You're dang right. That's exactly how you have to try to build an organization in this league. You're going to come into a game in which you are 1-4 and think you're going to come in and everything's going to go right. Just going to go into overtime against an 0-5 team on the road, backup quarterback. No, come in here to win. Go for 2. Score a touchdown with 10 seconds left. We're not playing overtime. We're trying to win games. We got a lot more Sports Map All Night coming right ahead.
23rd pitch, Bellinger with a fly ball to right field. Cody Bellinger has just given the Dodgers a 4-3 lead.
Highlight courtesy of AM 570 in Los Angeles. Charlie Steiner on the call, one of the greats. Cody Bellinger sends a ball into orbit and sends the LA Dodgers into the World Series for the third time in 4 years. You watched that last night. Joe Davis on the TV call, I thought, did a magnificent job, especially for being a guy that is calling the team you call each and every week. He's calling the Dodgers, and he's the TV voice of the Dodgers. I thought he was as bipartisan as you could possibly be in the situation, but I got to hand it to the LA Dodgers, man. They come back from 3-1, and people that listen to this show, people that just listen to the interview with Pat Donovan, and if you missed it, it'll be up moments on Audio Boom and stream sportsmap.com, sportsmapradio.com, and we tweet it out all over the place on all the different local and all the different social channels. I'm at Bill Schmid Radio. He's at Carlson Radio. My guy Andrew Carlson. And Sports Map Radio is how you get each and every show's podcasts, events, show rundowns, streams, everything you could possibly need is right there. But I was watching that game last night, Andrew, and you know how much I disdain the Los Angeles Dodgers. And frankly, it's nothing against most guys on that team. I think a lot of them are very, very fun to cheer for. I think Mookie Betts right now is going to start rivaling Mike Trout in just how everybody immediately, you say, who's the best player in baseball? And it's like, before the question's out, Mike Trout. At some point, Mookie Betts is going to have to climb himself into that conversation. Am I wrong? This dude made two of the most just game-changing plays defensively. And oh, by the way, he hit 15 home runs in 60 games that they played in already. He's magnificent. And what he has, what Mike Trout doesn't here, Andrew, and this is the reason why he's going to have to start getting himself into the conversation, because it matters all over every other sport. What have you done in the playoffs? How many titles do you have? Right now, he could add his second title in 3 years. He deserves to be in that conversation, in my opinion. And last night, it's Cody Bellinger delivering the big hit. We've seen Bellinger do this again. It's pretty much the exact same way that I saw him end the Milwaukee Brewers' hopes back in 2018 when they went on and played Mookie Betts' Boston Red Sox in the World Series. But this lineup that you see go up for the Dodgers, and I mean, it's 1 through 9. John Schmoltz said something on the broadcast last night, which I thought was really intuitive. And he said, you're going to need somebody's going to have to be the unsung hero, right? Stars are going to do their thing. You anticipated seeing Acuna come around and score a run. You figured Freddie Freeman was going to factor in a little bit more than he did. You knew Mookie Betts was going to get on base, and you wanted to see who was going to be the game changer, who was going to change the game offensively, who was going to make the play that everybody remembers. And I look at the lineup for LA that they're putting out day in and day out. You look at the 6-hole hitter, and it's Cody Bellinger, and maybe that's it. But this guy's been challenging for MVPs left and right. Like there's no way he's an unsung hero. He's one of the guys that you believe will take you there. But then everybody else on the Dodgers lineup is the same way. Betts, Seager, he ends up being the CS MVP. Guy had 5 homers in 7 games. He was absolutely white hot. Justin Turner's played in how many different playoff games? Max Muncy is just an irritating baseball player, but if he's on your team, you absolutely love him. I feel like that guy makes every right play over at first base. A couple of times during this series, he's just gone from first to third, and whether or not it registers right away in the mind bank of how big that play is, you see the rest of the inning and the pressure it's putting on the opposing pitcher, stress on the defense. But that game last night, you saw Betts with another crazy play where he robs a homer. You had plays at the plate. You had Arias come in and finish off the game with 3 innings and go 9 up, 9 down. So you had the miraculous pitching performance. And I guess Arias would probably be the guy that is the unsung hero if you needed one here, because he's been good. But if you saw him going 3 up, 3 down to close out the game and go 7, 8, 9, I don't even think Dave Roberts could have told you that he saw that happening. But that lineup 1 through 9 is just, it's as close to an untouchable machine, as I've seen. And Will Smith gets plugged in there right in the middle as the young guy hitting in the 5 spot. He's as good as any of them, 1 through 9. AJ Pollock was a big-time acquisition, a high-priced free agent acquisition, one of the higher-priced guys that they brought in the organization. You just kind of forget that he's even on the group. I mean, Jock Peterson's hitting 8 in this lineup. And for 15 different teams in the league, guy could be hitting 3 or 4. It's just it's a freight train to see on paper. And then you see it in a series where Atlanta had everything working, up 3-1. All you expect to see is them continue to roll. But 43-17, you don't get there by accident. And now the Dodgers go on and play the second best team in the big leagues all year long, the best one record-wise in the regular season on the American League side, the one that cleans house in the American League playoffs and almost became another footnote in history as a team that blows a 3-0 lead. But that Tampa Bay Rays team is pretty resilient. Look back into Saturday night into game 7. They got themselves back out in front early. Arozarena is just becoming an absolute superstar in front of our eyes. And Andrew, this is one of my favorite things to do. Put this into context. Randy Arozarena won American League Championship Series MVP. Can you guess what Randy Arozarena is making this year?
I would say if it's not prorated, probably 500-600K. But since it's prorated, let's go with 200K.
Yeah, he's making about 220,000. Everybody listening saying, "Hey, let me sign up for that deal." But this dude is hitting in the middle of a lineup that's going to the World Series, and he'll make the same thing next year. He'll make the league minimum next year. It's one of the reasons why baseball is going to be in a sticky wicket, if you may, with their salary cap structure and into their next collective bargaining agreement. But it's a young player league, and you're seeing more and more teams tailor their organizations that way. And you start to forecast where the turnover could be. Man, I don't see that LA Dodgers team turning over much at all. Mookie Betts talked after the game. Now, remember, this guy comes in, gets traded over to the Dodgers, doesn't have a contract. He's a free agent rental almost for 1 year, and then signs the monstrous contract that he did in an extension with the Dodgers, and he says it's just an absolutely perfect marriage.
Year in and year out, we're going to compete. Like I said, I love the coaching staff, the guy, the players, obviously, the front office, everything about the Dodgers is winning. And that's in my DNA, and so that's why I chose to stay here.
Yeah, and he also chose to stay there for 365 million other reasons for the next 12 years. And they chose for him to be their franchise player, over all the different guys that were on that team. And I heard, Frank Thomas on the pregame say, well, they got to find some money for Corey Seager, and they got to find some money for, Bellinger and all these different guys. But when you got a Mookie Betts on your team, hey, I'm good with that. Just give me him, and I'll try my hand against anybody. They still got club control for a couple of these guys because they're young. Now, Andrew, you're seeing the prime years where everybody's young for your Houston Astros start to dwindle down. If I'm not mistaken, that could have been George Springer's last game as a Houston Astro, correct?
Thanks for reminding me. Yes.
I'm sorry. But then you look at how they, supplement those moves. Bregman's going to come up soon, right? Before the contract extension that he signed. He signed the extension. But he was going to be coming up into that window. And you saw the Chicago Cubs 4 years ago when they win the World Series. Man, people on shows like this were saying, how many can they win? Now, this could be the start of a dynasty. They're all young, controllable players. Now, 4 years later, they're talking about blowing it up. I poke a lot of fun at where the Dodgers and how many cracks at the apple they've had, how many chances to win the big game and win the World Series as they've had. But there's a lot of other organizations that think they're going to be on a 3 World Series in 4 years stretch. But not many can actually do it. Not many can get there that many times, put themselves back in that position each and every year. And the Dodgers have done it. They've really cracked a code there. And they have one of the most talented teams I've ever seen in baseball. But it doesn't mean that I am not vigorously cheering for them to get beat in this World Series. Now I'll tell you why on the next segment. And we're going to do our World Series predictions here coming up next before Dan Zimborski previews it with us from ESPN as well as Fangraphs and gives us the lowdown on how exactly Tampa is going to have to combat this LA Dodgers lineup. But just look at the pieces that Tampa has. And we'll give you a salary breakdown here coming up next. But it will stun you as to how, while money can be a major tipping point in baseball, it also can be thrown out the window in one of the most David versus Goliath opportunities and series that we'll ever see in American sports. It's coming up next here on Sports Map All Night. Dan Zimborski's here in 15 minutes previewing the World Series from Fangraphs right here on Sports Map Radio. We're back here on Sports Map all night. Bill Schmid hanging out with you. My guy Andrew Carlson is here as well. You can join us, those folks watching on YouTube, as well as Twitter and Facebook. Thanks for hanging out with us, and everybody listening coast to coast across the country, nationwide, as we like to say. One of our fine local affiliates. Thanks for hanging out with us. We're going to talk to Dan Szymborski from Fangraphs and ESPN, preview the World Series in about 12 minutes from right now. But we're inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts studios as we are each and every night. Don't let a bad battery leave you stranded. The professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts can test your battery free of charge. If it needs to be replaced, O'Reilly Auto Parts can help you find the exact right battery for your car or truck at a guaranteed low price. Keep your car on the road by getting your battery tested for free at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every single day. 1-800-224-2004 if you want to join the conversation here tonight as we talk about week 6 in the NFL, as well as preview the World Series. It's officially a final. 38-10, the final in Dallas, as Kyler Murray just dismantled the Dallas Cowboys tonight. It was hilarious to watch. Almost feel bad for Mike McCarthy at this point. There's not much more that they can do there in Dallas. However, Zeke being able to hold on to the football would be one way that you could slow down the Arizona Cardinals and not giving them the ball on back-to-back possessions by putting it on the turf. Also, they get Leighton Vander Esch back today, and they were just unable to cover the middle of the field up. Their secondary is just really not good. And the loss of Byron Jones is being amplified because you don't have anybody behind them, the corner spots, to save you. Right? Like Jeff Heath was an all right player, and now he's in Vegas, but at least he was always the last guy of defense. Was he going to make every single play at the safety spot? No. But at least Heath wouldn't get beat. And one of the biggest parts about playing safety in the National Football League is realizing that if anybody's behind you or even, they're leaving, is the saying in the league. You can't let anybody get past you. And Kyler Murray had Christian Kirk get past the safeties tonight. He almost had DeAndre Hopkins take a 10-yard in route all the way to the crib from about 70 out. Instead, it was an 80-yard touchdown to Christian Kirk that kind of put this game out of reach. That one made it 28-3. And the Arizona Cardinals roll. Now they've won 2 straight after losing 2 straight. So they're 4-2, and that NFC West is just so crowded. 5-0 Seattle Seahawks. Now 4-2 are the Rams and Cardinals. And in last place at 3-3 with the most impressive win, I think, that you saw all weekend. And that was the Niners at home last night on Sunday Night Football beating the LA Rams, who I think are really good. That division is legit, and it appears like it's going to continue to get better for the better part of the next decade. All right, World Series predictions. We're going to talk to Dan Szymborski here in about 10 minutes from right now, and he's going to give you everything you need to know, senior writer from Fangraphs as well as ESPN. I believe in my heart, as much as I reluctantly want to say it, Andrew Carlson, I got the Dodgers winning this thing in 6. I think their pitching is it's just too much, and that lineup is just so potent. Whether or not it ends up being, Snell or it's Glass now going in game 1 against Kershaw, you're still looking at Clayton Kershaw in the postseason. It has been an issue for him. However, this is like June to his body. He's in as good a shape as he can be. The last start against the Braves leaves some to be desired. However, that lineup is going to be dangerous against that bullpen. And I think later into the series is where I think the lineup flexes its muscle a little bit more, because you can start seeing bullpen arms, night in and night out. When you get more looks at those guys who are, dominant relievers like Nick Anderson. Your Houston Texans got to Anderson pretty good before game 7. But, they had seen him like 4 or 5 times, 3, 4 or 5 times. There's a reason why managers are so quick nowadays to yank starting pitchers going up against the lineup for the 3rd time in a game, because the numbers show once team starts getting a look at you, your effectiveness goes way down. And whether or not the Rays and Kevin Cash can maneuver that bullpen and get different looks in different positions in different moments against, the Dodgers lineup and attack different parts of it, that thing just keeps coming at you, man. And once they flip it over to the top and it's Betts, Seager, Turner, Muncy, Smith, and Bellinger, there is no rest for the weary. And I think that ends up leaning too much on Tampa. And this is about as big of a David and Goliath moment as I can remember in pro sports. So you're talking about a team that prorated their salary is just over like $29 million. The prorated contracts of Mookie Betts and Clayton Kershaw themselves are like 28. So then there's 26 other guys that are getting paid, and none of them are getting peanuts outside of Will Smith because he's a second-year player. Bellinger's still in arbitration. He's making 11 and a half on a standard rate. He's still cashing in with 6. So the money spent on this Dodger lineup, I think ultimately is going to show out and end up taking this thing in 6 games, Andrew. As much, this, working with me now for the last 6 months on this show, you know how much I hate saying this, but I think the Dodgers end up winning it in 6, and I think they're finally able to go home with the Commissioner's Trophy, and John Schmaltz and the rest of the folks that hate bullpenning and hate defensive shifting will say it still doesn't win championships. What about you? What do you got going on here in this series, Dodgers and Rays?
As much as I hate to say it, I agree with you. As an Astros fan, the Dodgers organization and their fan base is not exactly number one on my list of friends at the moment. But the reality is this team is significantly deeper than the Rays. And Tampa Bay's pitching staff, at least in terms of starters, might be better. Their bullpen is probably better. But you look at their lineup and you say, okay, they've got Randy Arozarena, and what else is there? There's nobody else in that lineup in the postseason that has hit for a lick. Basically, everybody else in there is under 200 or right around 200. And given the depth of the Dodgers lineup, I just don't see that being enough to get past them, because the Dodgers are going to score some runs. And Randy, by himself, is not going to be able to put up enough runs for the Rays like he did against the Astros. It's just not going to happen. You can argue that the Rays against the Astros, they were the worst team in 6 of those 7 games. Now, they were the better team in Game 7.
Yeah.
You could argue that they were lucky to get there. I don't think that luck is going to continue against this Dodgers team that is so desperate to get that World Series title. I think the Dodgers are going to win in 5 because they're just a significantly better team, as much as it sort of pains me to say that.
Oh man, it's going to be so bitter to say those words, but I agree with you. I just think that lineup is just so damn impressive. I mean, 1 through 9, they just come at you in waves, man. And they have so much power that, we were watching that series each and every night here against the Astros. And like you said, the Astros may have been the better team like 6 out of 7 nights, because every single time the Rays come up, you're just either they need a home run or they're not scoring. They're so boom or bust with Zunino and my guy G-Man Choi. Like, they're just feels like they're outmatched. I'm sure hoping not, because it is a welcomed sight to see a small market team with that kind of payroll into the Fall Classic. Dan Zimborski from Fangraphs is going to tell us how they can bullpen themselves to a championship. It's Sports Map all night. Don't go anywhere.
Hi, this is Jake, EO of Rocket Mortgage.
All right.
Here's Bill Schmid.
Inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, indeed, it is Sports Map all night. The radio station, well, wherever you may be listening to us, we're on the Sports Map Radio Network, baby. Coast to coast, nationwide, as well as on YouTube at Bill Schmid Radio. Sports Map all night with Bill Schmid is how you find us there, and you find the video stream each and every night. Andrew Carlson is alongside. And let's hit the Progressive Guest Hotline. World Series starting up tomorrow. Glasnow against Kershaw. And we bring in our guy, Dan Zimborski from Fangraphs and ESPN, senior writer at Fangraphs. He joins us on the Progressive Guest Hotline. Progressive, making it easy to bundle your home and car insurance. Get your quote at progressive.com today. Dan, it feels like forever ago that you and I were talking on this very network back in May of, man, what would a World Series look like this year? And it starts tomorrow, man. First, before we dive into the matchup, which I think is going to be really, really fun to see, a David Goliath matchup in American sports that we really don't get to see a whole lot of because of the salary structure. How impressed are you that we're sitting right here and they're going to actually play the Fall Classic in front of fans tomorrow night?
I have to admit, I'm pleasantly surprised. I was a little worried when the season started and you had teams missing games, but it seems that baseball, I mean, I don't always think they were as careful as they could have been, but it worked out.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to complain in 2020 with something working out better than expected, because little has this year. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's for sure. We can't complain about much in this year because we'd be complaining about literally everything that's gone on in the world this year. But man, it's Rays and Dodgers, and whether or not the league wants or the networks want New York and Los Angeles or Houston and Los Angeles, the league itself is getting the two best teams into the World Series. And for me, watching it from afar all year long, you're seeing 16 teams, the biggest field ever. You still got the two best teams into the World Series, I think, at a 60-game pace. It's pretty impressive to see.
Yeah, after such a strange season, it's almost like one final surprise that with 16 teams and no big advantage for teams winning a lot of games during the regular season, that we still ended up with the actual most basic expected result of the best team in the AL against the best team in the NL. I'm still not crazy about 16 teams in the playoffs in a normal season.
Same,
but I do like that we have two legitimately excellent teams that could claim to be the best in their league facing off, and I think it's good for baseball generally.
And Dan, how can Tampa outpitch the Dodgers to win this series? Because on the surface, man, I look at that Dodger lineup and just laugh, because 1 through 9, they're just coming at you in waves. I think Peterson could hit, in top 5 in a lot of lineups in the game. He's hitting 8 just because he's so stacked up. It's Glass now, then it's going to be Snell and Morton. The bullpen, we all know, is tremendous there in Tampa. How can they outpitch and pitch to win here in this series? And it just seems so daunting.
Well, the good thing for the Rays is that with actual days off during the World Series, something we didn't get in the ALCS, they will be able to keep their bullpen kind of fresh.
Sure.
The challenge for the Rays, as you mentioned, is the Dodger offense. It's not a weak offense. It's not really weak anywhere. And the Rays play a lot of matchups trying to eke out small advantages, but the Dodgers are a matchup nightmare. I mean, it's a team that has an incredible amount of depth, one of the few teams that can rival the Rays in depth. They scored nearly 6 runs a game while playing half the time in Dodger Stadium. It's a frightening lineup. And, I mean, the Dodgers, are the favorites, but if the Rays get a couple good performances from the starting pitching, go deep into some games, hit Clayton Kershaw, which, as we have seen, is possible in the postseason. They could win, but my money's still on the Dodgers, of course.
And that's the same way that I'm looking at it. But for the game itself, Dan, and working at Fangraphs, senior writer at Fangraphs, you know this as well as anybody. The league is transitioning into, more of, I think, the way the Rays play and covering the Milwaukee Brewers for a handful of years up here. So many people, bash that kind of matchup-driven game. I think it's the way of the future, and this could be the total arrival. And I know it's been here. The bullpenning way has been here, especially after that Royals team won a championship doing it. But could this be maybe the awakenness that everybody needs, the opening of everyone's eyes nationwide as to this is how small market teams have to win in this league?
Yeah, the Rays, I mean, I do think that they could choose to spend a little more money than they do, but they're always going to have, fewer resources than a team in Los Angeles or New York has. They're not a team that draws fans even when they're playing well. We kind of joked that when they were playing in front of the empty stadiums that, the Rays are used to it. The Boston crowd is louder than the normal crowd. They've had a lot of success, and nothing breeds imitation as much as success. And really, the analytics revolution probably is almost over in a way in baseball because every team, to a degree or another, is a stat-friendly team because there's just a lot of money in getting things right, and it tends to work out in the long run. Now, people can say, are the aesthetics right, that we see pictures coming in and out? But I think if you want to change baseball's aesthetics, then you need to kind of tinker with rules to make different things more efficient than others. Like if you want a game where more balls are hitting the play and fewer home runs, you have to adjust the baseball. You have to adjust the fences. But I think the Rays and Dodgers are two of the most progressive in terms of stat use teams in baseball, and it's fun to see kind of the big market version of one and the small market version of one.
That is funny you bring that up because the Dodgers got their guy and their GM from Tampa. They knew exactly what kind of team they wanted to build and how they would do it. You're right, they have a lot more resources than anybody else, but they go in and grab Mookie Betts this offseason. And Dan, I don't know where you stand, and I don't know where all the numbers over that you guys have at Fangraphs points to it, but I'm seeing this guy dominate the league once again. Now he gets to go do it on the West Coast, and he gets to do it with one of the most historic franchises in the league. Not like the Red Sox weren't, but if he wins again this year, man, that's 2 out of 3 years. He's now done it with 2 clubs. Every other sport breaks down greatest in the league by wins as well as performance. Is he going to start comparing and rivaling Mike Trout as the tip of the tongue answer of who's the best player in baseball? Boom, Mike Trout.
I think Trout still has the advantage. Trout is always amusing because he makes excellence so boring almost because he's so good at at it. You're never really surprised by what Trout does because it almost seems casual at times. But Betts is definitely kind of in that tier below the Mike Trout tier. He's a terrific player, and I think it's good for baseball to have teams motivated to win, like the Dodgers were last year, and acquiring Betts because too often, I guess with a lot of analysts, I share my tiny little bit of blame, but sometimes teams do lose sight of the idea that they're trying to win the World Series, not just
kidding.
Efficient. And Dodgers, they went all out. It's a team that sometimes has too much caution, but this time they did not. They went all in for Betts. They got the guy they wanted. They inked him long term, and it was good for baseball to see teams go after stars and treat them like important parts of the team.
You're exactly right. Dan Szymborski joining us, senior writer for Fangraphs as well, a contributor to ESPN's MLB coverage, because there's nothing more aggravating to me in baseball than watching the Pittsburgh Pirates spend whatever it is, $50 million to field a 26-man roster. It's kind of insulting, to the fan base, Dan, but now you see a team like Tampa get this far with utilizing as few resources maybe as they did. Let's look at it from a different vantage point. Is this a little bit dangerous after the season we've had and the conditions we're going to have going into next year and, the collective bargaining agreement right down the road of more teams saying, hey, man, if the Rays can do it by being smart and saving money, why can't we do it?
Yeah, I think what the players union has to kind of address, and I kind of hope that they do extend the CBA out a year just because there's so many uncertainties about 2021. I think that you need to address that with the kind of the rules that teams operate under, because generally speaking, the players' pie has kind of grown with the idea that players are going to hit the market right after like the end of their prime and get overpaid, and that doesn't really work anymore.
No.
I think that the players need to move, kind of just push for a system in which players get money earlier when they're at their peaks, because the idea that teams are going to go back to overpaying 31-year-old veterans, that's probably closed as a source of increased revenue for players. So I do think that there are rules that need to be addressed, but the environment that baseball's in, with COVID-19, with economic uncertainty, it's not going to be a great offseason if you want to see big spending from teams. You'll see the star tier get their dough, but I think there'll be a huge gulf between the stars and everybody else.
Damn, Dan, are you saying that you're not going to see Matt Garza get almost $70 million again when he's into his age 30s?
It makes me sad sometimes because there were always like so many contracts to make fun of, like.
Oh, no doubt.
The Brewers got Hammond. Like what's Coors Field? Who knows? It does make me a little wistful for the past and being mean about it.
Dan Zimborski, Fangraphs, as well as ESPN, joining us here. Follow him on Twitter at @DZimborski. He's on the Progressive Guest Hotline. Quote, buy and save on home insurance with Progressive's new home quote Explorer only at Progressive.com. What about Cody Bellinger and Corey Seager on the way out here, Dan? They're going to both get just a stupid amount of money. I know it's going to be 2 more years in arbitration for Bellinger, and Seager's going to come up a little bit sooner. Can the Dodgers theoretically keep this lineup somewhat together after committing so much to Betts and seeing how close they are to grabbing the Commissioner's Trophy, and then maybe they bail out with some of their top-end guys?
I think they can, because if you go forward just 2 years to 2022, they only have $71 million committed to players under contract, because while the team spends a lot of money, they've been pretty good at making sure to spend money on quality and being able to keep Betts. That's quality. You don't see a lot of mid-tier free agents. They fill spots from within with someone like Max Muncy, Kike Hernandez, Chris Taylor. That's kind of, I guess, the Rays kind of approach to the game, move to a larger contract, a larger city. So if they can keep doing that, they can afford to pay their stars. And I think there's a good shot they can do that. But of course, baseball is very, very competitive. So you might start to see some of the Andrew Friedman Brain Trust start to move to other cities as well.
And look at on the way out here, Dan, one final thing for you here. You can talk about parity in sports, but just look at Major League Baseball and how many different champions you've seen in the last decade. Is this as much parity as we've seen in the league?
Yeah, I think people always seem to think that parity is dead in baseball, but baseball's quite a volatile sport. You compare like the playoff system towards the NBA. In the NBA, 80% of the higher seeds advance in the playoffs, but you don't have anywhere near that in baseball.
Yep.
Simply because the difference between a great team and a good team in baseball is fairly small, and something you kind of need 162 games a year to actually find out. There's nothing more luck-based in sports than where a ball ends up going off the bat, because you can hit a ball 110 miles per hour right at a dude. So I think you will continue to see a lot of different teams win the World Series. It's a sport that it's hard to have one guy take over a game the way.
Yeah.
There's no LeBron James of baseball. There's no Tom Brady of baseball. So you'll see a lot of teams stay competitive.
Dan, thanks, dude. This is always fun, man. Enjoy the series, and we'll talk as this thing continues on, and then we get into one of the strangest off seasons that I can only dream of what it's going to look like. Man, thanks, dude. We'll be reading along at Fangraphs.
Always fun. Thanks for having me on.
Dan Zimborski, guys, once again, senior writer for Fangraphs, contributor to ESPN's MLB coverage. Follow him on Twitter at @DZimborski, spelled exactly how it sounds, guys. He joins us on the Progressive Guest Hotline. Quote, buy and save on home insurance with Progressive's new home quote Explorer only at Progressive.com. And Progressive is proud to honor our veterans by donating cars to move their lives forward, especially in their times of need. Learn more about their Keys to Progress program and plans for 2020 at keys2progress.com. We'll be right back here. My guy Andrew Carlson and I are going to give you the 3 plays that paid, well, sort of, in about 1 hour as we recap our plays over the weekend. Andrew Carlson went to the window and took the book. And one more time, they took my checkbook. And we're also going to hear from Aaron Rodgers as what in the heck went wrong for the Green Bay Packers in Tampa Bay. It's all coming up here on Sports Map All Night.
I'm out on Jake. Like, I'm totally out on Jake.
Now, this is just mean. Just cruel and unusual punishment. Sports Map All Night is the program. Bill Schmid alongside Andrew Carlson. Andrew, check this out. This was posted by the Cleveland Indians Twitter account. The 3-1 support group meets on Tuesdays, Braves fans. I mean, come on, man. The body ain't even cold yet. You got to go and make that joke. That's just rude. You think the Warriors are running that support group?
I think they're probably drying their tears with those championship rings. They're all right.
Yeah, they're all right. The Indians are the ones that are crying into the 2016 World Series t-shirts that are somewhere, overseas. One more hour to go. Aaron Rodgers coming up on Sports Map All Night. Hour number 3 of Sports Map All Night is here for you on a Monday across the country, coast to coast, ladies and gentlemen. Sports Map All Night. Andrew Carlson's alongside. Andrew, good weekend for you, as we'll hear in about 40 minutes or so in the 3 plays that pay. But other than that, how was the weekend for one Andrew Carlson in the great city of Houston, Texas?
Well, I mean, considering the Astros failed in their comeback from a 3-0 series deficit against the Rays, it wasn't great.
I was trying to avoid that.
Got steamrolled by Derrick Henry, so that wasn't great.
Okay, not steamrolled. They went to overtime. Come on.
No, but Derrick Henry himself literally steamrolled over the entire Texas defense.
Okay, well, yeah, that might be true, yeah.
So, look, it's personally decent weekend. For everything else, not so much.
And I didn't even have to set you up. You didn't even mention the Arsenal game either.
Hey, look, I mean, that was an expected loss. The other two, less so.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, Man City seems like they're just as good as they've ever been, huh?
I mean, this year, not really. I mean, they were missing arguably their best player in Kevin De Bruyne. But not to put too much EPL talk on the show here. Man City is, look, they're the richest team in the world, and because of that, even though they're not playing well at the moment, they've got more depth than every other team that's out there. So even when they're missing their best players, it's going to be a tough one.
Well, and you said not too much EPL talk. Well, we'll cut it off here when we got to go to break. But you just mentioned it there. Man City's like one of the richest teams in the English Premier League, for everybody wondering. Could you find a comparison for like Man City is the richest, make them the Dodgers? Who would be the Tampa Bay Rays in this situation? Are we talking like, I know West Ham's like an old big time establishment. Would like the Leicester City win from a few years ago be like the easiest comparison?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lame comparison because it's been done like a billion times at this point.
Okay.
But yeah, that is the easiest one. Outside of that, there's nothing that's even close to ever happening on that sort of scale in England.
Well,
again.
whoa. You're saying my Wolverhampton Wolves aren't going to come out and pull it off?
They're not that big of an underdog. They've got a massive Chinese ownership backing them.
Okay. Well, hey, I'll cheer for the rich team at that point. Wolverhampton. Those are my guys right there. Because my guys on the American football side laid an egg. We'll discuss next. Sports Map All Night. You along with my guy Andrew Carlson back in our Houston Mothership Studios. 1-800-224-2004. We're inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios. And the game of the weekend that I've been trying to avoid, even though we talked to Pat Donovan in the first hour of the show, and you should go and check that out on the podcast, as we talked Tampa Bay Buccaneers as well as Tampa Bay Rays. They get ready for a World Series tilt, their first one since 2008. And their football team just absolutely massacred the Green Bay Packers yesterday, 38-10. And the Packers had a 10-0 lead in the game. They give up 38 unanswered. Aaron Charles Rodgers throws 2 picks on back-to-back possessions. One of them on an out route gets housed for 6. And he very eloquently voiced after the game his thoughts on throwing a pick. He just said, well, stuff happens. Paraphrasing, of course.
Rodgers takes the snap, 3rd and 10, drops, pressure coming against the pass. It's intercepted.
Oh.
Picked off down the sideline. 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Tampa Bay. Touchdown, Buccaneers. Jamal Dean. First turnover of the season by the Pack, and it's a pick 6.
Yeah, I mean, that happens. It's partly, I haven't had a lot of those over the years, but the wind was blowing pretty good right to left. Like I said, I felt good about the spot, and I knew he was tight. We could throws like that. I missed my spot by probably a foot or so. And the kid made a good play.
Well, the kid made a nice play, and it came at the expense of Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. The highlight courtesy of Tampa Bay Radio and 98 Rock. Gronk got into it. He scored his first touchdown, I think, since like 2018. It was a brutal beat for the final 3 quarters of that game yesterday for the Green Bay Packers. But, the embarrassment against Tampa, I didn't pick it. It was one of my games in the 3 plays that pay. I thought the Packers dropping a point on the road was somewhat of a gimme. I thought it was going to be a layup. But, now it can't be as stunning as it was. I mean, Rodgers now 7-6 in the regular season coming off the bye with the loss yesterday. And Matt LaFleur, while he is now in the regular season 17-4, 18-5 overall as a head coach, those numbers are pretty impressive, right? However, when the dude loses, his team gets blown out. I look at last year coming off the bye. They lose at San Francisco, and that was an absolute disaster. On Sunday Night Football, come out and they lose 37-8. Now that one, at least, the same deal here. It took full quarter for the opponent to start scoring. But once the run game gets going on this Packers defense, they don't have a whole lot of answers. Kenny Clark up the middle might be one of the best, pass rushing nose tackles in the league. But he has really no help on the interior stopping the run. They're running a 7th round pick and a undrafted rookie from UCLA and Chris Barnes out at inside linebacker. And for as little as you're in a base defense in the National Football League anymore, you still need somebody that can, 1, organize the defense, 2, get everybody in the right spot, and 3, stick their nose into the right gap and be able to plug something up against a guy like Ronald Jones, who was running downhill yesterday. He had 23 carries for over 110, 115 yards, 2 scores. And one of the touchdowns came on a drive where it started at the 1-yard line. The Packers up 10-0 after Aaron Rodgers' Hingle McCringleberry celebration on the touchdown. You see that, Andrew? You see the little ode to Key and Peele, by the way?
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Unfortunately, it wasn't a touchdown. Unfortunately, the rest of the game sort of.
Oh, yeah.
From there.
It blew up. It was like Dan Smith, BYU, like right at the end of the skit. It just like, wait, what? What happened here? But through the entire game, I'm watching over on the Packers sideline. trying to, pick up on the body language that everybody always is so interested in seeing from Rodgers. And was he going around to everybody saying, come on, guys, we can still win this game? No. But I also think that's pretty overblown and overhyped. I think the rah-rah stuff gets kind of lost on 26, 27-year-old dudes. But what I also didn't see were a whole lot of adjustments being made by the Packers. There was no help given to Rick Wagner once David Bakhtiari, an all-pro for the last 4 years at left tackle, goes out. They flip over a right tackle who was signed to be the starting right tackle in the offseason, gets beat out, and then they move him over to left side, and he just got worked. He got absolutely run through. Elton Jenkins, their left guard, second-year player out of Mississippi State, he had gone like 900 snaps in his career without allowing a sack. And they charged one of the sacks, one of the 4 that Rodgers took, for 42 yards against Jenkins. And if it's the one that I am thinking of in the south end of Raymond James Stadium, Rodgers drops back to pass. There's 2 guys lined up on the left side, Goldston and Shaq Barrett. My man, Rick Wagner, steps back and looks at both of them and goes, wait, which one am I supposed to block? Well, I don't care which one, just block one of them. But now this is the bigger issues that are going to come up, I think, with Green Bay. And one thing that, winning masks a lot of problems. And no credit needs to be taken away from Tampa Bay. They played their ass off. They played like a team that got embarrassed on Thursday Night Football and came out and slapped somebody in the mouth. Green Bay just happened to be the one that came up next. But Green Bay is a team that's got to play from ahead. Andrew, I texted you a little bit during the game yesterday. And the one word that I could come up with is exposed. There's always a way to beat an NFL team. And by no stretch of the imagination am I saying that this Packers team is similar to the Baltimore Ravens offensive last year. Because, they set records for how they could run the football. But the Ravens got kind of exposed in the postseason as a team that's got to play from ahead, right? And they got down against Tennessee, whatever it was, 10-14-0 in the divisional round last year. And Lamar was forced to throw it 40-something times. It takes away his explosiveness in the run game when he gets out of the pocket because he's got to advance the ball farther down the field. Kind of takes away one of their biggest elements, which is grinding on a team, getting you into different personnel packages, keeping you in one that's not advantageous for you and just pounding you into submission. The Packers just could not play from ahead yesterday. And they had the opportunity. They were up 2 scores. But how quickly a pick 6 changes the entire complexion of the game is not what Matt LaFleur was talking about. It was not really what Aaron Rodgers was talking about in the post game. Instead, and this is the more disheartening reason for a loss, it's because Matt LaFleur said they didn't practice well enough. Here's the head coach after the game yesterday after his team gets the doors blown off of him by 28.
Our practice this past week was not up to our standard that, these guys have developed over the last year and a half. And, that's what happened today. You practice like crap and then you go out and play like crap.
And Aaron Rodgers said it best when he said he thought his team needed to be humbled. And they sure as hell were yesterday in Tampa Bay.
You don't ever want to lose like this. I feel like we needed a little bit of a wake-up call at some point this season because things have been so good. And there's been so much talk, maybe outside the building, about the ease with which we're, moving the ball on offense and scoring. And, I think we need to kind of a kick in the ass a little bit as a little bit of a wake-up to
And I don't like to be a guy on a radio show that comes on and just yells all the time. I don't think that's entertaining. I don't think people tune in to radio to hear some guy yell and scream and say, this is just horrible. But I do got to ask, as the captain of the team, as a guy on the team, the only one that's won a Super Bowl, that's been to the mountaintop, led this organization there. Wouldn't you think you got the clout in the locker room, so to speak? You have a big enough voice and a big enough platform. Enough guys will respect what you're saying to stand up midweek, maybe on Wednesday, and say, I don't know what we're doing here, but this stuff isn't going to cut it. All right? Because we're playing a guy right over there down in Tampa who's won 6 rings and gone to the Super Bowl 9 times in the last 2 decades. Whatever you watched them do on film last week, expect the complete opposite, because that's how he's going to make them practice. That's how their leader is going to make them practice. You saw Tom Brady giving it to Ryan Jensen on the sidelines on Thursday Night Football a week ago, right? Oh, man, he was letting 66 have it for a dumb mistake during a game. You don't think he's doing the same thing in practice? If you want to talk about it and be about it, perfect practice prevents piss poor performance, then at some point the leader of the football team's got to do it. And when you're seeing it happen in front of you, it's a lot easier to say it in retrospect and know that it was coming, but it's another one to go out and prevent it and be the first guy to say, listen, we need something different because this isn't going to cut it. So the Green Bay Packers apparently practiced like crap, and then we all got to see him play like it against a team in Tampa Bay whose defense is legit, man. They are fast. Devin White and Levante David are no joke. And when Ndamukong Suh is playing as mean and nasty as he was yesterday, man, they're going to be a lot more of a factor than I thought they were in the beginning of the year. You're not going to Tampa to retire. You're going to go to Tampa this year and get rushed all game. So the Packers say that they practice poorly. The Tennessee Titans barely practice, and they are still undefeated, in large part because of Derrick Henry. How legit are the Tennessee Titans? We'll tell you next here on Sports Map All Night.
42-36 as Arthur Smith comes with the king catch for the final 5 yards and the victory. And the Texans stunned.
That's the call on Tennessee Titans radio yesterday. That's how it sounded as Derrick Henry cashed in. He finished with over 250 total yards yesterday, and including a 94-yard scamper for a touchdown in overtime to beat my guy Andrew Carlson's Houston Texans. 212 yards on the ground, and then he chipped in 52 through the air. Good for all of us doing math. 264 total. He was an absolute freight train yesterday. And Andrew, you mentioned it during our picks last week. You said that he could go for like $150, and he took that and said, "Hold my beer."
And that's when it became personal for me.
How were you feeling watching this this go down yesterday? Because I was impressed by how quickly the Texans kept answering some of those calls.
I was really enjoying the offense that the Texans were putting out there. It was fun to watch my team play football again.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I had to watch that defense that Bill O'Brien has like systematically destroyed with his decisions over the past 2 years and some of the contracts that he's given out. And watching some of those guys try and tackle as if they're allergic to the football was just so incredibly frustrating.
They're allergic.
Better, but I might at least try. Actually, no, that's a lie. I would definitely not try and tackle Derrick Henry.
No.
I'm going to try and put that out.
No.
But I don't know. Maybe I'd try and get in the way or something. I don't know.
I tell you this, Henry's on my list. And you know what that list is, Andrew? Dudes in this league that I would pass my one opportunity to play in the NFL if I had to go up against.
Well, that's what the Texans were doing too. So
Yep.
You guys are on the same page.
Yep. No chance. He's coming head first at me. I'm getting out of the way. He is just unbelievable to watch. I mean, you're watching a 6'3" guy at like 250 pounds just run away from people.
Yeah, the fact that he has breakaway speed when he has the power and size that he has is just completely unfair. Because you saw once
It's insane.
Field on that 94-yard run, he was running away from the secondary. And look, I know the Texans secondary isn't the best in the world. They don't have any 4-3 guys out there, but he was running away from them and everybody else.
No doubt. Well, hey, say it this way. They're professional football players, right? So, I mean, they got some speed. They got some legitimate athleticism. That was just scary how quickly they were just running. He's running away from people. Andrew Carlson and I, inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts studios. Don't let a bad battery leave you stranded. The professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts can test your battery free of charge if it needs to be replaced. O'Reilly Auto Parts can help you find the exact right battery for your car or truck at a guaranteed low price. Keep your car on the road by getting your battery tested for free at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts, better parts, better prices every single day. Andrew, before I get your take on the decision, let's hear Romeo Crennel, the interim head coach of your Houston Texans, explain his decision to go for 2 after scoring a touchdown with, I believe, like 1:50 to go in the game. This was Romeo Crennel after the game.
Didn't get the 2 points. It felt like that would kind of put it out of reach for them. And if we had gotten it, we'd have been in much better shape. As it turned out, we didn't get it. And then with the touchdown and the extra point, they tied it up, and then we were in overtime. And then we didn't perform in overtime, and they win the game.
And I got to say this, Andrew, before I get your take on it, watching it as a Texans fan. I absolutely love it. You win games on the road. You go and try to give a knockout punch, and you don't let that offense back onto the field because Tennessee was moving it. And A.J. Brown was a factor in it. Tannehill was slinging the rock around. I know they got a nice pick on Tannehill trying one of those play action passes, but I thought it was the right decision for a 1-4 team on the road going up against an undefeated team. What about you?
No, I thought it was absolutely the right decision, especially considering the fact that you had just gone for it on 4th down near the goal line on the previous play to score the touchdown.
Yes.
You were already up by 1. The conservative decision right there is to kick the field goal, go up by 3, and force the Titans to score a touchdown. What you do by going for that touchdown, that sort of logic means, okay, now we have to go for 2 here. We just went for the throat step by going for the touchdown. Now we go for 2 and put the game out of reach.
Now,
Problem was the play was just not good enough.
and conversely, we were kind of critical about it last week on Sunday Night Football when Zimmer of the Vikings went for it on 4th down and he said we're trying to win the game, right? We want to win the game. We're going to go 4th and 1 because what does he have to do? He's got to get a 2-point conversion. It's Russell Wilson. He's going to get it. I think it's different with the Texans yesterday because I'm looking at this. I can go up 2 scores. That does end the game. Russell Wilson scoring a touchdown ends the game if we don't kick the field goal and go up 8. At least we get one chance to stop him from 2 yards away. You really think you were stopping Derrick Henry from getting 2.5 yards yesterday? I think you're fooling yourself.
Oh, absolutely. And I think a lot of that comes down to being able to read the game and read how it feels. The feel of this Texans-Titans game was entirely different from the feel of that Vikings-Seahawks game. In the second half, and basically for the entirety of the game, really, the Titans did whatever they wanted on offense the entire time. The only time they got stopped was when they stopped themselves either through holding penalties or Ryan Tannehill turnovers. Whenever the Titans were effectively operating on offense, the Texans had no shot at stopping them.
Man, 28 of 37, 335 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a rating of almost 139. That's Deshaun Watson, and that's in a loss. That is just so tough to see. Because he is just so great at that position. To see how bad it's going for them this year, just as a football fan, man, it's tough to see. When he was out there taking the coin toss and he said whatever heads and it ended up being tails, he turns around and he goes, well, somebody take my helmet, man. I'm just going to wear this baseball hat because I ain't getting back on the field. He knew it was over at that point. He knew he wasn't getting back into the game. That's got to be the most sinking feeling as Deshaun saying, well, can I take my pads off now? It's like during a conditioning workout back in the day. Hey, coach, are we doing this with shoulder pads on or shoulder pads off? Because it didn't seem like he was getting any more contact there. 42-36. Opens up another question that we've been asking for a while. Are the Titans for real? Well, these wins were for real by Andrew Carlson, and the losses, well, they're the same. I'll hold another L. Sports Map all night. Don't go anywhere. All right, Mondays at this time, we recap the weekend that was in our 3 plays that pay. But first, guys, got to tell you about one of the top gifts for the holidays. Been talking about it with a bunch of my friends and had some family members over this weekend on Saturday, watching a little bit of college football, watching Alabama against Georgia. Going to have 3 friends over to try to offset some of the cost this weekend for the Justin Gaethje Khabib matchup on Saturday night. We'll have to talk about that as the weekend goes on. But everybody kept looking and said, dude, where did you get that Lambeau Field? I said, dude, homefields.com. It's one of the coolest things you're going to find. Then I flipped the lights on and it was like the scene in Toy Story, Andrew, where they're in the claw game, right? And all the little aliens like, oh, and I flipped the light on. I'm like, dude, check this out. And the entire inside of the 3-dimensional replica of Lambeau just lights up that I got sitting here in the man cave. It was pretty sweet. And everybody can go check them out right now at homefields.com. You can see what I mean, but you can also check out all the different options of stadiums they have, right? I got Lambeau Field hanging out here, but if you got a Cleveland Browns fan in your life, right? And they don't even want to think about the First Energy Stadium days, right? The new place that they got, because there really hasn't been a whole lot of winning involved there. They want to go back to Cleveland Municipal Stadium and remember the 80s when they were, just there. They got that across sports. They got 165 different stadiums, more than 165 different stadiums. They're all over the place, from football, college basketball, the NBA, Major League Baseball. They even got hockey arenas in this place, and they're all 3-dimensional illuminated replicas of your favorite stadiums. Our guy Ken over there has put together an incredible business, and really what it's for at this point, I mean, we're within 2 months from the holiday season coming up. It's a tremendous gift for the sports fan in your life, and especially for you. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Listen on WCCO up in Minneapolis. Yeah, you want to go and get a version of the Metrodome? It's right there for you. Or U.S. Bank. I know there's been some winning in there, right? The Minneapolis Miracle. It's going to be lit up like Stephon Diggs running down the sideline against Sean Payton's Saints. Check it out right now today. They make a great holiday gift. And make sure your significant other or your kids know that it's there, because your kids should be getting you a gift. I'm telling you, they should be. So go check out homefields.com, and you can see what I mean about these illuminated 3-dimensional replicas, because they are sweet, and they have just literally any stadium you can imagine: football, baseball, hockey, college basketball, college football. Go check them out. Homefields.com. And when you get there, make sure you use the promo code SportsMap, 1 word or 2 words, doesn't matter. Make sure you let them know that we sent you over here at SportsMap. That's the promo code to use at homefields.com. Okay, Andrew, I wish there was a promo code that I could just type in and make this entire weekend of gambling go away. However, 2-0 for the show pot here tonight saved it, because it was another disastrous weekend for your boy. I'm just going to start it out before you can gloat about your college games. I struck out again in college football, 1 for 5 overall on the weekend. And it was just abysmal to watch. Tennessee, the Volunteers, got just steamrolled at home. They got their defensive coordinator fired. They gave up 38 to Kentucky and lost 38-7 to the Wildcats at home. Did not cover the 6.5 point spread. No, they did not. I thought over of Louisville and Notre Dame at 62. I thought it had a good chance, right? Louisville's offense has been moving all over the place. Quarterback there throwing touchdowns left and right. Well, his hands started cramping in the middle of the third quarter. So a backup quarterback came in, and for some reason the Notre Dame Golden Domers just decided not to score. There were 19 points scored in the game. It was 12-7. Yeah. That would be an under. And Mississippi State and Texas A&M was my only hope towards the end. However, that Texas A&M defense is a little bit better than I think people are going to give them credit for. Kellen Mond has that team rolling for Texas A&M. And I know you told me earlier in the year, Andrew, to not believe in the Aggies in a big game. However, they got themselves a couple of really nice wins here against Florida. It doesn't get any easier for Jimbo Fisher's group there at Texas A&M as they continue on into the schedule. But I kind of like the squad they got rolling out there at College Station. I think they're a legitimate contender, and they're going to find themselves there right now, bordering into that top 10. What were they, 11 going into the weekend? I think they're going to sneak themselves in there, and they're going to be a little bit more of a mainstay. 7 is where they have them updated this week at 3-1 overall. The Texas A&M Aggies playing a full game and did not allow Mike Leach's offense to get really anything going there for Mississippi State. Instead, got the Mississippi State Bulldogs quarterback pulled. That does not look good for the over of 56. So those were 0 for 3 for me. Another golden sombrero in the college game. And then we drank away our sorrows on Saturday night. Instead, Andrew Carlson had some victory money to buy some drinks with.
Yeah, decent week in the college game. Pitt versus Miami over 47.5. Had to sweat it out a little bit, but the combined 50 points from the Hurricanes and those Pitt Panthers got it done for me. Look, it wasn't a pretty game by any means, but hey, when the total's only at 47.5, you don't need it to be pretty. You just got to get to 50.
Just got to get there.
48. Second game, I have Notre Dame minus 14 versus Louisville. Now, when you were talking about the over, Bill, I couldn't help but laugh because we both read this game so wrong. I don't even know what on earth was going on over there, but the fact of the matter is Notre Dame scored 1 touchdown, failed a 2-point conversion, kicked a couple field goals, and those 12 points were enough to get them the victory versus Louisville. I'm sort of at a loss for words with this one, but hey, look, just forget it and move on. And the final one for me, South Carolina +3 versus Auburn. I would have put money on South Carolina money line. That's how confident I was in the Gamecocks heading into this one. And they really came through. Bo Nix, we talked about it in the picks heading into the weekend. Not good on the road. He's a sub-500 quarterback on the road. You can't be taking him on the road against a team as good as the South Carolina team and expecting to win. And that's exactly what happened. The Gamecocks more than held their own against Auburn, got the victory, and sent me home a happy man with my college picks at 2-1.
What is the infatuation with Bo Nix now? Like, is it now just that we know his dad played and like he was the young guy and it's still like the good story? Because he just does not play well on the road at all. Talk about happy feet in the pocket. I thought Baker Mayfield, that was kind of what he suffered from a lot yesterday in Pittsburgh, was just being too anxious. Bo Nix is just way too anxious all over the place.
I think that's something that he's hopefully going to work through in his junior and senior years at Auburn. We sort of got the infatuation with how he played down the stretch in some clutch games during his freshman season. And whenever you have a freshman season that has some glitz and glamour to it, it sort of just papers over those cracks.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Uglier facets of the game, and you forget about it because you assume, oh, he was a freshman. He'll be able to develop and work on those things. We don't have to worry about that. Look at all this awesome clutch stuff he did. And then when they get to their sophomore and junior years and all those flaws they had in their game from their freshman year are still there, you look back and you're like, oh, man, maybe we should have seen this coming a little bit.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I just see the guy every week, and I'm like, oh, man, I don't know. I see marginal improvement, but then again, it's like at some point they're going to need a little bit better at Auburn if they're going to continue on there, because we've seen how quick we talk about Texas seemingly each and every week, and whenever we talk to somebody about college football, we talk about Texas moving on from Tom Herman. Auburn moves on from coaches like quicker than anybody. I mean, they move on from coaches quicker than guys move on from girlfriends. It's unreal. They fired Gene Chizik, right? Was the guy that they had before, won the national championship with Newton. He was fired in like 3 years.
See you later.
Yeah, he was gone. See ya. We're done. It's like they'll just, if you don't beat Saban once in the first 3 years, they're looking for somebody else. And by the way, how about Nick Saban being on the sidelines right away? Yes, on Saturday night.
Was there any doubt? Was there really any doubt?
No chance. He was not missing that one. And especially, too, I like he starts up the interview. I don't remember who it was. It might have been Maria Taylor. And the first thing they pop up on there is, yes, 22-0 against his former assistants. You knew he wanted to catch that one. But Kirby's team there in Georgia is fun to watch. All right, we got to get into the NFL. I'm kind of delaying this one as well. I'll start with the losses again. Green Bay -1 over Tampa. Definitely didn't see that game happening the way it did. I anticipated Baker Mayfield would actually show up and play professional football. Instead, the Browns just were the Browns, and they got blown out by Pittsburgh. That defense is a little bit better than I gave them credit for, but they're also good when you throw the football right to Minkah Fitzpatrick, and then he's able to house it. Like, that kind of stuff happens, and that helps when you're a young team trying to get a win at home. When you throw balls right to the opponent and they take him in for 6 and then give Ben Roethlisberger extra possessions, you're probably not going to win the game. And Kevin Stefanski's team did not win the game. Instead, he had to go and pull Baker Mayfield in the second half, and it was because of his rib injury, and he didn't want to see him take another hit. So that was very nice of him. The one win that I got on the weekend happened to be with the Minnesota Vikings. And similar how you said with South Carolina, take him on the money line, I was all with the Falcons getting a W up there in Minnesota. I didn't think it was going to be as bad as it was, but dude, Kirk Cousins is abysmal in big-time games. I mean, he was just, that first interception he threw on the first play of the game, his team takes the ball, and on the first play, they run play action. Dude, you haven't even run it yet. Circa 1999, run play action on the first play of the game out of a drop back I formation. Gary Kubiak is calling a game in 2006. But anyway, Cousins throws it literally right to the inside linebacker. He threw 2 more picks in the first half. It was over before it started, and the Falcons roll in Raheem Morris's first game as the interim head coach. So good for him. And Andrew Carlson, goodness gracious, good for you. A lot of green here.
Yeah, most green I've had on the sheet so far this year. Long may it continue.
Man.
3-0 on the NFL picks last week. I had the Titans -3.5 versus the Texans. I told the country, Derrick Henry's putting up at least $150. Who knew I was being very conservative?
You undershot him.
I undershot him by about 100 total yards. I knew that he would be able to run rampant. The fact that the Titans had 2 turnovers and the Texans had none, and the Titans still managed to cover the 3.5-point spread. Give me whatever crap you want about the bad beat in overtime. I don't care. Look, the Titans were clearly the better team. Spotting them just 3.5 points against this Texans defense is a sham, and I don't expect us to get that sort of opportunity again later on this season. I had the Vikings versus the Falcons over 54, and that cashed pretty easily. Neither of those defenses are good enough to really stop what are 2 competent offenses. Now, Kirk Cousins, that Vikings offense, become a lot more competent once the other defense really stops trying to get 30 points. But hey, look, if you're putting up 20 points in the fourth quarter, when it comes to my over, that's still 20 points. And that's what I got. And the Vikings were able to get us that over for me. And then the final one cashed this afternoon. I had Chiefs -4.5 versus the Bills. I understand the Bills are a solid football team, but anytime you're giving Patty Mahomes anything under a touchdown, I'm honestly kind of inclined to take a look at it and potentially take it. He and that Chiefs team and that offense are just entirely too good. And hey, man, that defense isn't too shabby either.
Yeah, no, their defense is better than I thought they were. They're very opportunistic. Steve Spagnuolo is a good defensive coordinator, that's for sure. I mean, they're a really, really good team. Now, you got the Chiefs at 4.5. Got them earlier today at 5.5. That one moved all over the place. But you just said you don't think we're going to be able to get the Texans or anybody playing the Texans at -3.5 again?
No, definitely not the Titans. Now, I'm any team that has a competent running game, I would be hesitant to see the Texans with that sort of line again, because these books have to realize that the Texans' run defense is a complete sieve. Like, there's nothing that get through there. Their linebacking core, they can't tackle. They can't generate any sort of pressure up front. Their line gets no push whatsoever. They can't defend any sort of running back. Any sort of running attack, it's over for them. So anybody who can run the ball, bet them all day against the Texans.
Well, it opened at Packers -3.5 for this weekend against the Texans. It's already moved to Packers given 4. However, I'm going to hold off on making any investment in Green Bay against Houston until I know what's going on with David Bakhtiari, because Ricky Wagner against JJ Watt, whatever that ends up being anymore. Yikes. I'm not trying to test that with literally anybody because you're in a serious predicament if you're taking Rick Wagner against JJ Watt. That's going to be a scary situation for everybody. Take a quick time out. We're back right after this. Wrap things up on Sports Map All Night. Back here on Sports Map All Night. This hour of Sports Map All Night, presented by Rocket Mortgage. Want to see your loan options, adjust payments, and closing costs online in real time? Rocket can do that. Rocket Mortgage. It's been a good one here tonight. We talked some Tampa Bay Buccaneers and talked some Tampa Bay Rays as they get ready for their second World Series appearance with Pat Donovan, host of the Pat and Aaron Show on 95.3 WDAE in Tampa. Dan Zimborski previewed the World Series with us from Fangraphs. And hey, Andrew Carlson told you won a bunch of money in the 3 plays that pay. Those are good things. And we're going to do it all again tomorrow. For AC, I'm Bill Schmid. This has been Sports Map All Night. Peace.